Hello everybody, it's Marty McConnell, the off-grade gecko here. I forgot my spear. Hello everybody, it's Marty McConnell, the off-grade gecko here. And I have my little primitive spear with me today. Because reasons. Ooh, stuck right in that wall. So I'm doing another primitive video, and aside from being distracted by the woods, I can't seem to make a video about this. The topic of making stone tools is so diverse, and there's so many little avenues and pitfalls that it is impossible to give an overview of the whole thing in like 20 minutes or less, which is what I've been trying to do for the last week. So I just want to give you a basic overview of like how to make some stone tools from scratch in the woods. And the first method is what you just saw in my hand. Pop two rocks together, and depending on the angle that you hit them at, one of them is going to bust. Depending on the makeup of the rock is going to determine how it's going to break, as well as internal fractures that are already there and things of that nature. Now, you'll never really know what's inside a rock until you bust one open, most of the time. It's really hard to tell because from the outer cortex, which would be like this part here. I mean, this is a piece of chert, okay? So it's got all this little gray, kind of smooth, glassy, waxy kind of material. And then the outer cortex, the original rock that this busted off of, like, is this white, dull, nonsense. And then underneath you got this kind of, it's not a great chert, but it's okay chert, it's not, you're not going to have British flint down here in the middle of America. It's just not going to happen. So when it comes to napping, that's an area all its own that deserves its own video series. But I basically just took it, and this is just a piece of chalk that I hit it with, so you don't have to hit them very hard. And if you can find a ledge on here, like anywhere where the part that's the edge is on, it's off to one side of the center of the rock. So I guess that's the best example on here. It's not going to be very good. So this edge here is on that side of the center. So if you hit it this way, then you might be able to break that piece off, and that's going to rip this cortex off with it, in theory. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to work or not because of the banding in it, and this is where practice comes into play. Like, you learn a lot from just working with these materials. In theory, this shouldn't be strong enough to be a hammer, but if you can get a good knock on it and you've got a good platform, it breaks right in half. So this is going to require something heavier, but that's your basic methodology for making flakes. So let me pick up a couple of rocks that are maybe a little bit better suited for this. And all I'm going to do is, as you can see, this has got a flat side on it, so that whole edge all the way around almost is pretty much on the bottom side of the halfway point on the rock. So in theory, I should be able to knock this just about anywhere and knock a flake off. Can you see that? I need to angle the camera down. Okay, that should be better. Now I got a little one. I'm not trying to hit it hard, I just want to, come on. There's kind of one. This isn't really flaking really well because this is kind of a crappy rock, but I think it's got some good stuff in it. It's just not going to do an absolutely wonderful job here. Also, another thing you can do is by scraping any of these fresh edges that you do cut, dull them down a little bit, you'll get better flakes. I don't know all the science behind why, but that's why, and I just popped the flake off of this one. But I'm basically dropping these little flakes off of here, and the flakes are going to be your basic Neolithic cutting tools. Okay, so that's the simplest method. The next method is probably best demonstrated with a piece of sandstone, which everywhere. So this is a piece of sandstone. This is that rock that's been now sharpened a little bit because we did this, and this is called pecking. Where you're basically going to just hammer very lightly into another piece of rock. And can you see that? I'm removing material at a pretty appreciable rate. I mean, it's not a slow process, and I'm not hammering hard. I'm just very softly kind of pecking in there. And just like that, I already have a little bowl shape dug out. It's big enough I can stick my thumb in it. I mean, it's a very, very fast process. It's incredibly fast when you stop and think about it. This might actually make a nice little bowl. Set that over there. So the next technique would involve a flat piece of stone, like sandstone, and it's grinding in this case. I'm trying to grind this down. A light touch is going to work better than trying to force it. And if you can get this guy wet, if you're down by a stream bottom where you tend to find a lot of sandstone, and you can get it wet, the water will help to lubricate, clear out like all the little cut off pieces, and allow you to work faster as well. So that's pecking, grinding, and flaking. So this flaking method that I'm talking about is also called spalling. And spalling in flint knapping more frequently refers to, instead of trying to get little flakes maybe off of this, you know, and even if I'm trying to get a big flake off of it, sometimes stuff just doesn't work out. Like I'm getting better flakes off this than I am off of that, so I'm just going to put that away. But when you spall, you're basically trying to break off, instead of these little pieces, you're trying to break big pieces off. And a little ancient multi-tool. So what you want to do is find yourself, now a hammerstone is important, and stones can be used in their own right? Like this is a little sharp piece of rock. Hit an animal with that, he's going down. You know, pop them in the head. So they can be used as their own hunting tools. This actually has a fracture in it. I'm going to go ahead and take it the rest of the way off. And sometimes you'll see them little cracks form. You just split a rock right in half, pretty much, because it's got fractures in it from tumbling. What was I saying? So rocks are good in their own right. But in order to get more effective tools and get into flint knapping and things of that nature, you're going to need to find a good quality rock that has these qualities where it will flake kind of nicely. And what you're looking for is conchoidal fracture. So basically this one, wherever it's breaking, it's leaving these smooth, you know, it's pulling off these smooth flakes. Usually they're slightly seashell shaped, and you just get to used to looking for the pattern. So if you look up conchoidal fracture, it'll kind of give you an idea what you're looking for. Until you actually see it firsthand, it can be a little difficult to really know what it means. But it's going to be influenced by how you hit the rock, where you hit the rock, and a dozen other factors. And then you can knap those down. Pecking and grinding is another way to just take a raw rock and condense it down to nothing. And spalling is basically where you get your flakes from. So if I wanted to get, say, a flake out of this guy, which looks like a very fine grained quartz, I just saw him while I was walking and didn't want to pass him up, then I can look at this and see maybe I've got a little lip coming down here on the end, so maybe if I hit it right here I can knock like a big flake off the bottom. Probably not. I've got a pretty hard little amalgam rock here. It's some kind of metamorphic rock. It's a bunch of other rocks like pressed together with heat and pressure, and then it makes gumbo basically. So I'm just going to pop that guy right there and see if I can break a big old spall loose for science. No, but I got a little rectangular cutter that's really, really weak on there, so there's some micro fractures in here. Now this was sticking out of my leg, so some of these may seem like they're weak, but you can actually almost see through this guy. It's got a little translucency to it. It's very, very fine grained, especially for quartz. So I may see if I can go ahead and bust something out of this guy. And you see how this broke. I mean, they run right across, and there's really little skinny tiny flakes. So that tells me this might be a good rock for tools. The trick is to get it spalled and broken open without screwing it up. So I'm gonna try a couple more times, and again I'm gonna rough this edge up where I've been hitting it so I don't so I get all those little pieces that are gonna interfere with the hit like out of the way. And I'm gonna try coming in more of like a little angle. Should I turn the camera down? I'm gonna turn the camera down. Alrighty, so let's see if we can do this guy like this. There went a big old chunk. Okay, that's a freaking spear point right there. Even a novice like me, if this will fracture down nicely, will make a good spear point. Also, instead of rocks, you can use softer knapping tools like wood, antler, bone, because they give a little bit. So instead of hitting it with something that's going to cause an elastic collision like a rock, you can actually use a piece of bone, and this is breaking off nicely. You can use a piece of bone or wood, and that will give a little bit right at the contact point, and it just allows more time for the pressure to be applied, even if it's just a thousandth of a second or a fraction of a thousandth of a second, and it gives you a different break. It's like a smoother transition. Now when I talk about conchoidal fracture, here's an example of one of those little seashell pieces just breaking right out of the bottom. This one looks like a little fish scale because I'm not hitting it very hard, and I'm kind of being really careful about what I'm doing here. And this isn't a piece of bone, this is just a piece of what do you call it, chalk, that for some reason seems like it's strong enough to mess with this stuff. So flint knapping, like I said, is a whole nother animal entirely. That's worthy of a video series just on that. But if I can get this guy, and there's another big old flake. So this ended up being a really good rock. I'm glad I came down here. So all I have to do is spall this and see if I can get some bigger pieces, because this, by flint knapping standards, is relatively tiny. Like, I just happened to luck out on the shape. But I think I can make this into something. Like, this could be my first actual flint knap piece, and I'm going to do it all Stone Age style without my flint knapping kit. But maybe I can get some nice rocks out of this that I can use my kit for. I guess I should also warn you, if you're getting into knapping of any kind, like, you're going to break points. That's going to happen. It happens to professionals, to very seasoned guys. It happens to everybody. So, when you break a point, remind yourself it's just a rock, or it's just a piece of glass. You can go and find another one. It's not a big deal. Yeah. Now with that, alright. Head back to Dodge. Kind of like this guy. I'm going to keep him around. It's not as good as bone or antler, but it seems to be working for a little bobber, so, or for a billet. So I'm going to keep him. Probably taking this back with me, just because this rock has been amazing so far. I'm glad it caught my eye, and I'm glad I pulled it out of the dirt. It took a little bit of digging. I'm going to make some tools, and I'll show them to you guys in future videos, because there's no point in making this video like an hour long and explaining the entire process behind every different type of tool and exactly how to make each type of tool. And it's just, so when you see me using a rock tool, just be aware this is how they're made, by taking rocks and smacking them against other rocks. And most of what you're going to see me using are going to be flakes. So if I do a really advanced build or another tool, then I'll at least try to do a video to show you how I did it before pressing on. But in the meantime, keep on keeping on, stay safe. God bless America and all that stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe, because we're going to be doing more primitive videos. Primitive all the things. So